I'd like to call this work session to order. We're ready to identify ourselves for the record. Start with you, John.
Waddleton.
Okay, training assembly.
Ted Steele, some computers now.
Let's go this way. We'll start.
Francis McLaughlin, current planning.
Sean Odell, current planning.
Ryan Yell, current planning.
Amanda Moses, clerk's office. Mandy Honors, clerk's office. Barbara Jones, municipal clerk.
Okay, we've got the agenda on here. The first item in front is Green Labs, which is a testing facility. It's 2016-246 Green Labs. Who's here from Green Labs? Anybody?
I am Brian Coyle.
Okay. Let's see, your taxes paid, everything
thank
that's
you.
one of the items on here.
Yes, there was a library fine. I paid it.
Okay. We had one of those creep up yesterday, $22 library fines. We want to know, what books are you reading? On a garden or what?
Actually, detective novels.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Any questions from the assembly members?
Yeah, we did have, there's an issue there with the residents.
Yes, apparently on the same parcel, there's a business upstairs that is also a residence.
I'm told they're going to court trying to evict the gentleman. He hasn't paid for 3 months.
Correct. That's what I hear too. However, I believe it's still the person's still there. The business and he's still residing.
He's still residing there?
To my knowledge. I don't know if the owner of the parcel's here or not.
He's not here. I've been trying to contact him. He travels a lot on his job, and I've been unable to contact him through numerous attempts.
So the code restricts any marijuana establishment from being on a parcel where there's a resident, where there's any residential use except for a caretaker's apartment. The intent being to allow a caretaker of the marijuana facility to reside on the parcel.
Okay. Mr. Falsey?
Nothing to add, whatever, just faithfully, right?
Mr. Peterson?
Well, having been a landlord for almost 25 years, thank God I'm not in that business anymore. Evictions are a real pain, and it's not always easy to get a court date to get them out of there. Sometimes, courts are kind of backed up. So if the landlord lives out of state, that just complicates it even more. So I would imagine eventually he's going to get him out of there. It just doesn't happen as quickly as you would hope.
Yes, sir.
The landlord lives in state.
Oh, yeah.
He runs a survival training business, learn to return.
Oh.
So he travels within the state, and he's currently not in town. Yesterday when I got the notice of this meeting, I started trying to contact him.
All right, great.
But he is regularly in town.
John?
So the issue here though is you have a residence and you can be a caretaker, and we got a letter from your attorney or the property owner's attorney saying that a future resident would always be an employee of the property owner. But when we read the rules are that it should be someone that can take it, someone who's connected with your business and has a handler permit and access to your business when needed. And the letter from Janet Welton did not, or from the property owner, did not say that would happen. So how do we deal with this?
I'm prepared to employ the person who resides in that unit, not only as a caretaker, but to help in my business. Once we get this squatter, whatever, this person who's in there now, out, and it would be a boon to me as well. Frankly.
I guess I didn't understand the definition of caretaker as in, because that building has other units and because the landowner thought that that was something that he could benefit from for his other units. But now seeing email correspondence, we could definitely pay them into the business.
Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so could this gentleman sort of be security as well? Would it be a dual position or something?
Yes. In fact, he would be, we of course have the alarm system, security cameras and so forth, but he would certainly be the closest person to react and to respond to
circumstances. I don't know if you saw the article in the paper the other day. They noticed there's been an uptick in criminal activity in Colorado, and Twiggins is the cannabis business there.
Mr. Steele?
What are we gonna need to be able to hear this or decide?
Well, we don't decide anything at a work session.
No.
Coming from the assembly on Tuesday, we're going to have something resolved on this. Because right now, the way the code reads, you can't have a residence above this, and that's going to be a problem for us on Tuesday.
Can we improve subject to, should that be an issue or not?
Erica?
I can develop a proposed condition saying the residents, residents of the caretaker's unit must be
If you
associated.
do that for us, I'd like to approve this, but I want a provision in there that you can't go into operation until that's been resolved. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And when do you expect that you'll be receiving the first product to be tested? How soon will that be happening?
Late October.
Mid-October, okay, well, that gives us
A little bit of time.
A little bit of time.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to stop this process from moving forward. He's been doing this for a while.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, it's good. I think the Community Economic Development Committee kind of didn't pass any recommendation because we were investigating that issue.
And we don't make any decisions at a work session. It's just to get us information. We'll deal with it on Tuesday. Erica, if you'd get us what we need to take care of this, we appreciate that. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for the consideration.
The next one is Cannabis, 2016-247. Who's here from that business?
Me, Earl Schneider.
Okay. This came in from Economic Development yesterday. John, what was the result of the Economic Development Committee on this? Recommend approval from the assembly?
Was recommend approval with the conditions, various conditions being met. Did you have you had a library fine?
I have another library fine.
You paid $22?
And we paid today, actually, I was very busy yesterday, but I'm going.
Our library is very happy now.
Now it's $20.75.
Would you get copies of that to our clerk, so that's not an issue, in case somebody's not here and asks a question? Question from assembly members? Thanks for being there yesterday. It was a pretty fast process. Other questions, we move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is Fuzzy Budz, cultivation facility, 2016-247. This one came in front of your committee yesterday. John, what was the result?
Similar, we recommend approval of it with the conditions that were listed by staff.
This one has the two extra conditions.
Okay.
So I have my AWU petition drafted, but I haven't connected yet with AWU to make sure that they're comfortable with this, so that'll be coming to you probably later today. The other one was about, so this is a cultivation facility in the B3 district. The code requires a cultivation facility in the B3 district to be attached to and co-located with a marijuana retail store. We had a discussion kind of led by Mr. Boston
application for your retail store pending before the state. And the cultivation license approval at the local level will go away if your retail store fails. Only to kind of make a gesture and say, we're not gonna hold up the cultivation as a result of the vagaries of the state approval process. The alternative, though, would just be to say that action on this is gonna be delayed until both of them are in front of the assembly, and that's the other option that I believe Assemblymember Dembowski might
Wait, could you lay on the table an ordinance that says for the next X months, we will handle it without holding up the cultivation, as long as they have applied for the retail?
Through the chair, definitely, yes, but then the ordinance would have to be set for a future public hearing, so that would at least be a 2-week delay.
But that might work.
Well, there's no ordinance to amend right now.
But the 2-week delay for this is probably not an issue, because, how quick are they gonna?
What was the question?
Well, if we were to, you have this issue where you need to have retail with your cultivation, but you can't have retail yet. So we were saying, how do we give you an out? And if we had an ordinance that kind of amended the rules, and this is just brainstorming, that basically said for the next 3 or 4 months, until you can get them in sync,
Right.
that we would allow cultivation if you've applied for retail license. If you don't get the retail license, you shut everything down.
Right.
But if we did that, it would, if it were introduced on Tuesday, it would be public hearing a couple weeks later. So it would potentially be a 2-week, maybe 4-week delay, but would that ruin your plan?
It would, in the fact that we need to start cultivating in order to be able to supply the retail. And of course, if we would have been allowed to from the get-go, we would have applied for the retail and the cultivation at the same time.
Understood.
But as stated, is we weren't allowed to do that, so that's why there is that gap. And so what we would ask for is some type of pity on us as being the first ones that had to do this. Of course, in the future, that's not going to be an issue. They should apply for them at the same time.
Right.
In our case, we weren't allowed to. And so it would set us back in a cultivation standpoint, which ultimately sets us back in a retail standpoint when I saw it on, based off of that.
Well, it's not the preferred solution, but
No,
it may be where we are. So if you were delayed 2 weeks, it's unfortunate, though.
I mean, it is what it is, and we'll make it work, but of course, 2 weeks in a business perspective is a lot.
Yeah. Is that an option?
What if we didn't approve the sales or something? You'd still have the cultivation,
No, I think.
It would become null and void.
so there's a risk.
It's different because it's a B3 area, it's just not an area. You can get us some paperwork, policy, along the lines of what he's saying. John, will that'll work?
That'd be great.
I'm sorry for being late, Mr. Chairman, but that would delay or that would allow them to start?
This would allow them to start.
You do understand the risk if you start and for some reason there's a problem with the retail, then that creates a big, potentially unsolvable problem.
Absolutely, and we have to remember that we've already taken that risk. All money has already been invested, regardless. So we've taken that risk from from the start, with the expectation that we have a retail that we have to apply for. So we're full aware of it. We've already applied for the license. We've already submitted the money to the state and the city for the retail, as well as we've already been done with the cultivation, but for the retail as well. So we've already taken that risk. At this point, there is no going back. So we're hoping that we applied or complied to everything.
And you understand that we're not saying it won't be, but we're not saying it will be. We're gonna take an independent look at that retail operation.
Separate.
Absolutely.
The other question or something? Thank you for being here, sir. Next one is 2016-249, which is Isidore LLC. Is the applicant here? There you are. And John, this one came to your committee yesterday, sir.
And Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we said this was okay with the conditions that are on here and no library noise.
And you don't owe any property taxes either.
No, I think that's cleared up.
Thank you for
in front of us on Tuesday. So you're still, just so that the members are in the meeting, you're still working, you've got the record to get the power supply situation straightened out.
Yeah, I actually gave Sean an email that I got this morning, just confirming where we are in that process.
We'll get that to everyone.
So we're all right on power?
It appears, yes, that they're actively engaged in the upgrades.
Good.
Yeah.
And then the last one on here is 2016-250, Cannabis LLC. It's a testing facility, are they here?
They're across the street.
Oh, that's right, aren't they?
Small operation.
John, this came, I think, in front of your committee too a while back, not yesterday.
Yeah, it was a few weeks ago, and I believe we were okay with it. There might have been some land use conditions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Landscaping and so on.
So I think you, through the chair, Cannabis LLC, it's I-1 Light Industrial District. It's an office building with housing some construction companies
Near the
in
old
building.
power plant in that area?
Yes, off of East Whitney Road in the Ship Creek area. And it's an existing site. They have to establish non-conforming rights for their lack of like parking lot landscaping and other items that current code requires. The applicant is not here in the room right now. He's at the he's speaking right now, I guess, at
Right over there?
CannaCon, yeah. I stalled out there. But yeah, so happy to answer any other questions. But he knows about the conditions of approval. We've talked about them, and he's actively working to solve them. They seem to be resolvable.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Yes, Pete?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I actually missed this meeting when it came in front of the committee. And so what kind of parking requirements are required for a lab? Because, I mean, they're not going to be having a whole lot of traffic. Occasionally, someone will stop with the truck and deliver some product or something. So it's not like they're going to have a lot of customers lined up or anything, right?
Yeah, so this is a testing facility, testing license, right? And it's not retail, cultivation, or manufacturing. It's just testing. But there is a parking requirement. They meet the parking requirement. I recall, checking the parking calculations. But this was an old industrial site or an office building that was constructed before our current sort of Chapter 7, Title 21 design requirements. A pedestrian walkway out to the street. 5% interior landscaping with certain number of parking spaces, requirements for on-site snow storage or an alternative snow management strategy. There's just these requirements that weren't required back then, and so if he establishes non-conforming rights, which he's pursuing, I mean, we've talked about it, and it's very likely that he'll receive. Then he's fine. I mean, there's some parking on the front of the building that backs out on East Whitney Road, and that's not something that is currently allowed, but that was how the site was maybe built originally. So this is sort of a property research question, and that's why the condition of approval exists. And he knows that it's that he will have to comply with Title 21.
So he'll be grandfathered in on some of this stuff that's building been there for what, 40 years now?
Right. Yeah, for instance, like the turning and maneuvering of those 9 spaces in front of the building, backing out on East Whitney Road it doesn't meet the turning and maneuvering requirement for off-street parking. But if they can establish non-conforming rights, then that would be permitted to continue.
Thank you.
Anything else from assembly members? Any questions for Tuesday? Thank you very much. Thank you, assembly members, for being here. That's the last thing we're going to notice. Thanks for being here. We'll see each other on Tuesday. Meeting's over with.